We looked at HIV life cycle and DHHA's guideline concordant antiretroviral therapy recommendations. We ensured adherence to ART is optimized, and we designed individualized monitoring plans and provided patient education for adverse effects. Now, let's educate an HIV patient on important lifestyle modifications.
So now that we have really good potent HIV regimens, our HIV patients are actually living longer. So now we have been able to actually study and see, how does aging affect HIV patients? Because before, patients would die within 10 years of having HIV. So we couldn't do these studies before. In fact, you can see that in the 1990s, a lot of patients would die as they age, like very quickly. And then, throughout 2000s, as we improve treatment, more and more patients are actually living longer compared to the non-HIV infected patients. And this was a study from Denmark. So one thing that's important as people age is, people start to develop comorbidities. So, whether it's hypertension or diabetes. So when you compare HIV infected patients with uninfected patients, you can see that, so for example, blue is, 3 or more comorbidities. So you see in the elderly of 65 years or older, the number of patients who have 3 or more comorbidities is a lot higher than patients who do not have HIV. So this means that, at the HIV clinic, um, managing these comorbidities becomes extremely important because you are more likely to encounter patients who actually have a lot of these comorbidities. Even in younger patients, you can see that compared to the uninfected HIV patients, have more comorbidities. So you can see that these comorbidities include hypertension, which is the most common one, but also you can see HIV patients are more likely to have MI. So when you compare, so orange is HIV infected, blue is HIV uninfected. You can see significant difference in MI, but also peripheral arterial disease, also CKD. So factors related to non-AIDS comorbidities, obviously aging is a huge part of it, but unfortunately we cannot do anything about aging. There's ART toxicity, so whether it's TDF causing bone toxicity or nephrotoxicity, that's something important for the pharmacist to monitor. So if someone is losing bone density, you may want to intervene and switch them from TDF to TAF or other regimens that are not as toxic. And I will talk about switching between regimens when it comes to toxicity on day 2. Of course, obesity, exercise, and diet and smoking are the most important lifestyle modifications. And the reason is HIV patients are more at HIV patients are at higher risk of having cardiovascular disease, and because of that, these are things that are associated with cardiovascular disease. So it is extremely important to provide education to HIV patients who would benefit from weight loss. It's important for them to exercise, and it's important to also give them education about diet. In fact, most HIV clinics actually have a dietitian as part of the team, so that they actually get a comprehensive education about diet. So dietitians have an important role in the care of the HIV patient. Now, when it comes to so you can provide education for weight loss, exercise, diet, and smoking. The most important out of all of this is smoking. So in this figure, you can see on the x-axis time in years. So as time goes on, and on the y-axis, you can see the incidence of MI. So the higher the number, the more MI has been happening. So you can see at the top, the most MIs happen in HIV positive patients who are currently smokers. Look at that huge gap. So this is HIV positive, and they are currently smoking. Next, you have HIV positive who quit smoking. So once they quit smoking, it goes, there's a huge reduction in the incidence of MI. And then down here you have HIV positive patients who never smoked. So even even quitting smoking, there's a huge difference between people who never smoked and those who quit smoking, and the huge difference between people who are currently smoking. So smoking makes a huge difference when it comes to myocardial infarction in HIV patients. To compare that to the control, so people who do not have HIV, so you can see people who never smoked, obviously down here. So the difference between people who never smoked, whether they have HIV or not, is pretty much insignificant. There's a small gap. But the gap is huge once the patient has HIV. So you can see patients who do not have HIV but quit smoking, they're here. So, there's a huge gap between people who quit smoking but they also have HIV. So because of that, you can always talk about weight loss, you can talk about exercise and diet, but smoking cessation in a HIV positive patient who is a smoker, it should be the number one lifestyle modification because it makes a huge difference. This concludes this presentation.